G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Those of you who are familiar with the Warble Drone 1 series will recall that on Saturday I had a pretty bad prang with this, which involved, among other things, hitting the ground on a rock at about 50 miles an hour, hard enough and fast enough that the mounting for this carbon fibre tailboom actually broke its attachment point on that bulkhead. So therefore, to get at it, I had to take the wing off and take the wing mounting platform and engine mount off. While I was doing that, I discovered it was necessary to put a woven fiberglass epoxy clear tape patch over some cracks that were working towards breaking the engine mount. So while I had the whole thing in pieces, but after I finished repairing it, I thought I might show it to you. That's the radio receiver. There are the wires, 2 to the right engine, 2 to the left engine. I don't think there's anything as fancy as an electronic speed controller in there. The battery sits up the front, and as you can see, I've added foam, compressible foam rubber around both the battery and the radio. I had to put multiple epoxy woven fiberglass cloth and clear tape patches on the wing. That's my favoured method for repairing a crease like this. This is too small to be bothered with, but a big crease in this style of a foam wing, which has some kind of a hard surface over the top, so you've effectively got a stressed skin foam monocoque wing. I know other people tend to use a lot of hot glue. I don't use hot glue. I find I can get a better surface finish if I pre-cut some woven fiberglass cloth. This is actually the last 9 square inches I've got left from a project my father was working on in the 1960s when he got his plywood rowboat and gave it a covering of fiberglass all over the outside so the plywood didn't have a chance to leak. Here's another look at the effect. You take whatever defect you were worried about and build a whole new stressed skin glass epoxy shell over the top of it. With minimal disturbance to the airflow. So you get strength and you get surface finish, because while the epoxy is wet, you stick the fiberglass onto it and then you rapidly cover it with some 3-inch wide clear tape, and that means that you can smooth the epoxy, push it into the cloth, and then the tape smoothly fares the repair, which may be only 0.5 millimetre thick in some places, except right over the crease, and the crease itself winds up with a triangular fillet of epoxy with the woven cloth over the top. Strongest way I can come up with to repair these wings. Although this wing, with its Coca-Cola trim tab, it now weighs 107.5 grams, and it probably weighed about 85 grams when it was new, 3 ounces. As a comparison, here's the original Falcon wing, which also sports much fiberglass and epoxy to the point where it virtually has a tip-to-tip fiberglass open sea spar. And it weighs 155 grams. So it's got 1.68 ounces of fiberglass, repairing it from probably 21 hours airtime. Maybe even as much as 25 hours airtime. This new wing has barely done an hour, really. Might have done an hour and a half. So, and left engine cover, centre section cover, right engine cowling, the 2 broken propellers, and the 5 little screws that hold the whole thing together. And of course, sadly, Saturday's crash broke both propellers, but it was a clean break and I managed to salvage both blades, which means that by drilling a hole in the root of each blade and applying nylon kite string twine and 5-minute Araldyte, I will be able to repair them. So I'll finish up with 3 repaired propellers in reserve as soon as I fix those 2. And when I put it back together, I have 2 new propellers. Well, they've both got airtime on them, but they're undamaged, they're unrepaired. I've been holding them in reserve, my second best propellers, because the aerodynamic hub spinners are not quite perfectly symmetrically attached. So the second best pair didn't quite spin as fast as the best pair. So that's where it's at. I'm about to reassemble it. I'm going to reassemble it with the red wing because it's lighter and I hope to fly a few more camera missions. But after that, the next plan is going to be to reinstate the original yellow wing with all its extra epoxy. I think I put 10 mils into the red wing yesterday. I reckon there's about 3 packets of epoxy in that yellow one. And when the yellow original wing goes on, considering that the replacement new tail has now got fiberglass patches, whereas the old original tail that's been decorating the ceiling of the hut for nearly 10 years, it has no fiberglass patches on it, so it's going to be lighter. So if I can't make this red wing behave properly, then it's going to go back into original condition, and we might even get to see it make a few flights with nylon twine repaired epoxied rebuilt propellers, as well as epoxied wings and all the original bits that came in the box 13 years ago. So now we screw the repaired engine mount wing platform back onto the fuselage. And I did put a little bit of 5-minute Araldyte into the receiving holes that those screws are going into. And as you can see, the centre section receiving holes get built up with glue before they receive the screws, because these 5 screws are all that holds the wing on in the original design. Give it a trial fit. Looking good. So the wings are literally glued and screwed on. The engine cowling mounting screws have long since succumbed to crash impacts. The left engine mounting survives. That for the right is just a ventilation hole in the engine cowling these days. The cowl mountings are superseded, replaced by a rubber band, one on each side, which is perfectly functional and holds the cowling in place. To prevent the nose of the cowling from lifting like that, I generally use a little bit of sticky tape, like so. it just holds that leading edge down, making for a slightly smoother airflow. As you can see, the canopy has been repaired using Araldyte to replace some missing bits, and it's also secured in place over the battery with yet another judiciously placed rubber band. So, the CC Lee Falcon Red Wing is once more airworthy. And I think those engines are running plenty smooth. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. I'm pleased with that. If it wasn't for the fact that the glue on the screws holding the wing on is still going off and won't be fully cured for 24 hours, I would be tempted to take this thing out and give it a test flight now. But not interested in having the wing separate. So the test flight of the repaired wing will have to be another movie on another occasion. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.